the public and board members. The meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if tech problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. Viewers can visit https://thelocalscene.media/. Let's do it again.
I don't think so. I think we got it.
Sean, did you hear me read the acts of 2023 thing? Sean?
See you panelists.
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Thank you. I wasn't sure whether we were been live then. All right, welcome. Minutes. I refuse not to do them first because by the end of it, it's a joke. So what have we got here for our minutes for tonight?
Yeah.
Do we have any minutes for tonight?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5.
All right, why don't we take them one at a time? Friend, since you've got them in front of you, do you want to just make the motion and then,
Could do that.
Al, in second?
Order. Possibly here. Probably can't do that.
I have the list in order if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going by the list. Oh, have they been amended? You just read it all. Thank you.
Okay, so I wanna,
I can wait.
It says March 9, 2024.
Can't connect.
Thank you.
You want me to try?
I have one correction. On March 9th,
Okay, so the first one we're doing is March 9,
March 9th, 2024, this was the annual and special town meeting.
Yep.
On the second page, we just took some votes. But it said we adjourned at 3:02 PM. When it convened at 8 AM. Now, we probably.
I only did that
keep it
because-
Open until the end of town meeting, I think that's what then we did, town meeting get out that early?
yes,
Yes.
so that's what was on the
Yes, okay.
select board minutes, so that's.
Then
what
I am okay with March 9, 2024 as submitted. I move the minutes for the March 9, 2024 minutes as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
second, all those in favor?
Yeah, roll call.
Roll call, yeah, because Sean's there, okay. Teddy,
Abstain.
Teddy, okay,
Abstain.
that's fine, I believe you.
Al,
JR,
Yeah, aye. Aye.
Al, I,
friend, I.
Betsy, I,
Chuck, I.
Sean, oh.
Aye.
Okay, great. Cool.
Okay, I'm just gonna make the notes here.
Okay.
610.
In May 21, 2024, let me find it.
Okay,
I have it. I have 2 corrections.
okay,
I don't wanna be a pain in the neck, but.
No, you go
two
for it.
things,
Please,
under the updates. You list a bunch of people, some you use last names and some you don't. I'd like to simply be consistent.
okay,
For the record, last names would be probably preferred,
Mhm.
if you don't mind.
sure.
So it's Mary and Betsy and Fernando, but then it's Lisa Freely and it's Laura Deacon, and
Yep.
I think it would be better. And on the last page, whether this actually shows up in the current records, I'm not sure, but it was a meeting of May 21st, but it says Finance Committee minutes of May 24, right below minutes submitted by Linda. And that should be 21 to match the
Right.
one, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I have.
nice
five-
blue pencil, sir.
So then I will move the minutes of May 24, excuse me, May 21st, 2024 as amended.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Chuck,
Chuck, I.
Abstain.
okay, Al,
Aye.
Fred,
Friend, I.
Betsy, I, Sean?
Aye.
So we've got 610.
Down. 7/2/24. Find it. You'd be happy to know, I didn't find any corrections of 7/2/24. I would therefore move the minutes of the 10th Finance Committee meeting of July 2, 2024 as submitted.
Second.
Okay.
Chuck, I.
Ed abstain.
Al, I.
Friend,
Okay,
aye.
Betsy, I, Sean?
Aye.
610. Cool. Is that what we've got for today?
Nope, we got more.
Okay, keep going.
5, 6. So these have been going 501, correct? You agree with me on that? There's 5 of us and 1 abstention, there's 6 people.
3, there's 601, there's 7 of us. Sean's up, Sean's there.
6.
On the.
I guess I didn't count myself.
Yep, there you go. 610.
Okay, good, thank you. Check that one off, hold on. Let me get one right here. 1 second. 8:26.
So those are not official minutes that,
Oh, yeah, that was just the fact, there was notification that 2 people attended the selectmen's meeting, so I don't think there's anything that needs to be moved.
No,
Because there wasn't a
Okay.
quorum, we didn't have a meeting.
no,
right,
But
okay,
just
we were just,
filling us in,
yeah, that's fine.
9:24.
Okay,
Okay, I've got a couple of things here. One, under new business, again, I'm being picky.
no, please,
Anytime you use FY, it should be capped.
okay,
Okay. Second page, under Debt Finance Committee. The second sentence it begins, Mary answered yes.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
thank
she
you.
meant yes.
Right.
I said, yep. I don't usually say no.
Put that in capitals too, right?
And now, those are the only corrections.
Okay,
Okay,
So I would move the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting for September 24 as amended.
Second.
all right, Chuck,
Chuck, I.
Ed, I.
J.R. I.
Friend, I.
Al, I.
Betsy, I, Sean?
Sean, aye.
Okay. 700. I'll
I'm
say,
gonna skip over 10:8 for a second and go to
Please.
10:29.
yes,
29, I've got 3, I'll see if I can find them. All right. Under. Budget number 192, central buildings,
Mhm.
it starts on the bottom of 1 page, it goes to the top. Second line, department request budget shows that 10.99, that should be percent after that.
yes,
And in the second paragraph, this next to the last line, some of the above mentioned, I think above mentioned should be 2 words.
okay,
I struggled a little with the 419 DPW management administration budget.
mhm,
And the only reason why is in the latter quarter of the paragraph, consulting services were reduced by 84.85%. Sheila added a line for MS4 year 8 EPA permit compliance, in the amount of 75,000. I think it's misleading to say that the budget reduced by 85%. Because we created a new line for the MS4 budget and put 75,000 into it.
okay,
So I really think if all you did was. Put the word after the 84.5%, get rid of the period, put because. Sheila added a line, I think it would explain the fact that we moved 75 out of that budget, we didn't really save 85%.
Mhm.
We just reallocated it. Okay with you?
yes,
Everybody?
I agree.
I think I have one, hold on, maybe I don't. Hold on. Nope, those were the only comments I had.
So the comment I had on that was, that, and this was, I saw in a number of them, presented 2 budgets as requested, the first being level funded with 2.5% and second being full departmental request. It kind of makes it look as though the 2.5% was going to be added regardless,
mhm,
maybe up to 2.5% or whatever, just to indicate, because we had been very determined that it wasn't just an exercise in adding 2.5%, but that was the cap, or a 2.5% cap. But any of the minutes that reflect that need to just have it changed to up to a 2.5% cap.
okay,
Okay.
We good?
Great.
I move the minutes of the finance committee for October 29, 2024, as amended.
Second.
All those in favor, Chuck?
Abstain.
Abstain?
Ed, I.
Okay.
J.R. I.
Friend, I.
Al, I.
Betsy, I, Sean?
Sean, aye.
610. So now we're back to 24.
Yeah,
That's, see, though, that was a tough one, because I
that was a
wasn't,
tough one, and
yeah.
what I would like to do, I was away, I only got home last night from being away. And I didn't have a chance, I dug out the minutes finally this afternoon. And I tried to look at it quickly, and I just, this isn't something that's a quick fix, I'd like to read them, if I could hold off voting on October 8th.
Sure.
So I have a chance to go over these, because I think
Yep,
I
sure.
might go to fill in the blank, I know who was there. So I can fill that part in easily, because I have my notes from that minute, for that meeting.
Great.
And it keeps referring to the speaker,
Mhm.
and I think I can figure that out. And
Okay.
maybe for the next meeting,
Great.
but I just didn't have enough time.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah,
That's all the
actually-
minutes we have.
I know everybody that was there too.
Yep.
I actually took notes on that as well. All right, great, beautiful. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry to do that, but when we do that at the end of the meeting, it is just the lame and the halt. So we just really need to be awake when we do that stuff. So, all right, so who's going first, kids? All right, very good.
All right, so tonight we are going to talk all things finance department. And so what I wanted to do was to go through a little slide deck and do just a quick overview for those in the room who don't know all of the details about what all of our individual departments within our individual divisions within the finance department do. I wanted to just sort of go over it, and as well as for the viewing public, because I know there is a very large audience watching the finance committee meetings, and I just want to make everybody aware of what the finance department does within the town of Duxbury. But before I get started,
Sorry.
what I'd like to do is just some quick introductions. If I start from the far end of the table, I'd like to introduce you to our treasurer collector, Corey Lyden. Corey has been with us since December, so just under a year. And prior to that, Corey had worked for the town of Duxbury for a number of years, had left to go to another community and then returned to Duxbury. So we're glad to have her here. Seated in the middle is our stellar assessor, Mr. Steve Dunn, who's been here for about 12 years now.
13.
13, lucky 13, fantastic. And then to my right, I have our town accountant, Karen Clancy, and Karen, very much like Corey, worked for the town of Duxbury for a number of years, left to go to another community. They both saw the error of their ways and came back to the town of Duxbury. So this is your finance team overseeing our primary finance divisions. So just from an overview perspective, our assessing department sort of kicks off our process by generating our valuations upon which all of our tax bills are prepared. And as we know, we talk a lot about us being a 97% residential community. And so we rely heavily on our assessing department to value all of our properties in order to generate the bulk of the revenue that we use for our operations. Then it gets passed over to the treasurer collector's office, where they do yeoman's work in terms of issuing the bills and collecting all of the payments on those bills. And then everything funnels down into the accounting office, because everything turns into a financial transaction. And then once those financial transactions are created, they all then become the basis for our budget and capital planning, and ultimately end up on our financial statements and our various financial reports. So from just a layman's perspective, what I like to say when people ask what we do is that we are the internal service part of our organization, and we process and manage the financial resources that enable all of our departments to do all of the good work that they do to provide services to our community. So we pay all of our employees who are providing the services, we pay all of the vendors for all of the goods and materials that we need in order to perform those services. And so we are primarily, I would say for some of our departments, our primary customer is our internal departments. But that is not to diminish the fact that we do have a lot of customer service interaction with the public. As we started to look at the FY 26 budget in terms of overall budgetary constraints, I just want to highlight for you the fact that, and it's not just applicable to our department, but as our budgets grow, our volume of all sorts of things increase. So the number of tax bills that we issue increases, the number of invoices and bills that we pay to our vendors increases. The number of vendors that we manage, the number of accounts, grants, funds that we manage, all of that increases year over year. And what we have, in addition to that, are compliance requirements. So we have just an inordinate and increasing number of reporting requirements that we are subject to across all of our departments. And what we're starting to feel, or what we've been feeling, I should say, is the pinch of trying to absorb all of those increases over the years with the existing staff, the existing tools, the existing bandwidth. And it's become increasingly difficult. And so I'd like you to keep that in the back of your mind as we talk about our budgets, because we are going to talk about some increases this evening. The other thing is that within our finance department, we've also experienced some pretty significant turnover in the past 2 years. Essentially, our entire accounting office is brand new. I think our longest tenured person in that office is about 18 months. And so what that means is that when we have folks who come to us with either little or no municipal experience, we spend a lot of time developing those skill sets and developing that staff. And as we're trying to train people, the job still has to get done. So we are trying to absorb and keep up with the workload while we are also trying to develop our staff. Yes, Ted?
Mary, excuse me. What do you attribute the huge turnover? You know, do you have any feel for it?
So it started with my position, where my predecessor retired. So after being in the industry for a number of years and being with the town of Duxbury for 5 years, he retired. And the town accountant left for a much higher paying job in another community, significant pay increase in another community. And Karen was in one of our positions in the finance office. She left for a promotion, took a position with another community that was at a higher level. So there's a variety of reasons, whether it's folks looking for different opportunities or a different stage in their life, which I hope someday I get to. But it's been a variety of situations. Okay. All right, so in your handout, and everybody should have a copy of this. Did everybody get one? So you can see the eye charts. What I did is I just boiled down all of our 5 departments. So tonight we're going to talk about the accounting department, auditing, assessors, treasurer collector, as well as tax title. So there are.
Is that in the packet?
It's in this handout right here. Yep. Can you flip to the
Sorry, I don't
second page?
have that in mind.
Second page didn't print out.
Oh, okay, I am a terrible. These were 2-sided copies.
Yeah.
We've got half the report.
3 and a half.
My apologies.
Well, we'll look at the screen.
Can you email?
Every
it to
other
us?
page.
I most certainly can. However, you're gonna ask me if this is in ClearGov and if I can email it to you. The answer is no, it's not in ClearGov. Yes, I can email it to you, and it's because I was modifying it up to 15 minutes before I got here. So, good team.
I'll take the email.
So I will give that out to you via email. All right.
About that.
What this is intended to show you is just a real high level 5-year overview of the finance department's budgets. Along with the 2 options that we're going to talk about tonight in the far right columns there, options 1 and options 2 for FY26. For option 2, which is our department needs budget, our requested budget, if you will, what we are proposing is a 9.37% increase, which equates to $117,156. Okay,
That's overall?
overall across all 5. All right. So within our request tonight, you're going to hear us talk across a couple of different departments about some additional requests and what you're going to see in the budgets that we're presenting. We are going to be talking about the need to increase our intermittent and seasonal staffing in the Treasury Collection Office, and Corey will talk about that. I'm also proposing a new position within the Finance Department of Budget Analyst, which we have talked about sort of tangentially and in previous meetings here with the Finance Committee. We've also, just like every other department, have been experiencing some vendor price increases. And we are also looking for some additional training and consulting. And I sort of alluded to that a moment ago when I talked about our staff that is, starting to develop within our organization. We need to make sure that we have the appropriate training and consulting resources to support them in order to do their job. What we're going to talk about as well is some of the consequences, and what we were hoping is, as departments came here to talk with you guys and talk about the differences between option 1 and option 2 budgets, that they talked about the consequences of if we didn't, if we were not able to fully fund the option 2 budget, and we were forced to adopt some sort of variation of an option 1 budget, that would mean that we are not budgeting and providing resources for our departments to the level that we actually need to do our job. So some of the consequences of that would be some staff burnout. We're continuing to absorb more and more workload. And when you have staff burnout, you end up losing people, and we're going to be in this continual cycle of training new staff and never really getting ahead of the curve. The other thing is we're really facing, in terms of bandwidth issues within the Treasurer Collector's Office, extended wait times for point of sale transactions, POS. So we know that the beach sticker sales go through the Treasurer Collector's Office, and that is a very labor intensive process. And Corey's going to talk a little bit about that. But if we're not able to address our staffing issues within that office, we're going to be faced with lines out the door waiting for beach stickers and being able to process those transactions at the counter and the time that it's going to take for that to happen. We're also going to be risking our timely completion of our compliance requirements. And for some of those, especially with the state, there are some penalties that are imposed when we don't meet our compliance requirements according to the deadlines. And then we've also had to toy with the idea of, if we were not able to address our staffing issue and handling the beach stickers, that we would potentially have to transition to online purchase of beach stickers only, which some of you may say, well, that's great, why don't we? And the problem is that if we did that, then folks who wanted to come in on a Friday morning and had not purchased their sticker yet and wanted to get straight over to the beach, right now they can come to the counter and they can purchase that sticker and we can fulfill it and hand it to them. If we went to online purchases only, that would not be the case, and that they would have to wait. If in the case of a Friday, they would have to wait until at least Monday, if not Tuesday, before they would be able to get that, to physically obtain that sticker.
Any idea how often that happens?
Quite frequently,
Okay.
quite frequently.
Did you ever do something like the like registry does, that they could do a printout of the completed transaction and have that with them as a temporary pass?
So there's verification that needs to happen. So there's a couple of things. There's software limitations with the products that are out there that we have access to using right now. The software that we have doesn't have that functionality in order to do that. But then we also run the risk of fraudulent activity if they don't actually have the sticker. And that's something that I've been very concerned about. Corey and I have been trying to come up with some different variations of handling this process. Because, and I don't know if your chart still has the numbers, but essentially we process about 13,000 transactions for these various permits. 5,000 of them are, so about a third of them are, or a little bit more than a quarter of them are done through the online process, but the rest are over the counter. But the larger volume is over the counter, and folks like to pay their fee and have that sticker in hand so that they can jump in the car and go to the beach. And we need to make sure that we have a system that's easy for our rangers to administer, so that there's not backups and a lot of angry people trying to get onto the beach or into the parking lots. So it's a work in progress that we're trying to deal with, but it's definitely a very big issue. All right, so let's start by talking about our various departments. We have a mission statement up here for the assessor's office, which you guys have seen in previous years when there were different variations of presentations before the finance committee. But what I always like to do when we talk about departments is talk about staffing levels so that you know what goes into each department. So within our assessing office, we have Steve, who is the director of assessing. He has 2 full-time staff members as well as a part-time staff member in his office, so 3.5 FTEs. And these are some of the tasks that office handles. So we talked about property valuation. We have over 6,700 parcels in our portfolio. Whether they're residential, commercial and industrial, or vacant land, chapter land. There's about 6,700 parcels, and the assessor's office is responsible for determining the full fair cash value of each and every one of those parcels. And as we all know, that changes quite frequently. In the course of doing that work, we also issue a number of building permits, and Steve's office goes out to inspect all of those building permits in order to capture the new value that's being added onto the tax rolls as a result of those building permits. They also process all of the abatement applications, so folks who are challenging their valuations, there's a whole process that they go through. And the Board of Assessors, under the supervision of Steve, review all of those abatement applications. He does extensive sales and data integrity analysis as part of the valuation process. And one of the things that's unique here about Duxbury is that all of that data analysis, and it's very detail oriented, is done in-house without the use of engaging outside consultants. So in my previous community, we farmed out about 20 to 25% of the work that gets done from the assessor's office to a third party. Part of the problem with doing that, however, is you're subject to their scheduling, but they also are not as intimately familiar with the community as somebody who's doing that work in-house. And it's also costly. So we have the benefit of having all of that in-house expertise managing our portfolio. As we talked about before, they build the commitments, they update all of the deed ownership, so every sale that happens in the town of Duxbury, they capture that data in order to make sure that the bills are delivered to the current owners. They handle betterments, they represent us at the appellate tax board, manage the overlay account, process our senior tax work-off abatements that go on all of our tax bills, and all of these other things that are listed up here. So there's a wide variety of tasks and activities that flow through the assessor's office and are accomplished with the 3.5 folks who man that office. In the accounting office, we have a full-time town accountant, an assistant town accountant. We have one person who handles all of our accounts payable, and we have one person who handles all of the payroll. And when I say all of it, that means the processing for both town and school, so the entire organization. So as we think about our budgets growing and the volume of invoices that departments are generating that's growing year over year, we essentially have one full-time person who is responsible for handling all of that. Which is very lean. We also have one person who handles payroll as their primary functions. Now, we do cross-training in the office so that when folks are on vacation or they have a sick day, we definitely have coverage. But as a general rule of thumb, when we have somebody filling in for them, then those folks are not doing their job because they're backfilling for folks who are out. So the staffing in the office is very lean, especially as we continue to grow year over year. In addition to handling all of the accounts payable and payroll, they also need to review each and every deposit to make sure that the proper funds are getting credited. We also handle W-2s, 1099s, the annual audit, managing our fixed asset schedules that become part of our financial statements, chasing down grant reimbursements, filling out what seem to be an endless array of statutory reporting requirements. On top of all of our reconciliation, managing all of our contracts, and having extensive interaction with all of our town departments. When they call us and they say, where do I charge this to? Can you set up a new account number? Can you approve this transaction so I can get this PO at the door? It's extensive interaction with town departments all day. every day. Our treasurer collector's office. This office is responsible for the receipt of all funds, the investment of all funds, and the disbursement of all funds throughout our organization. We have a full-time treasurer collector. We have an assistant treasurer, an assistant collector, and 2 bookkeepers. That's 5 full-time equivalents. And then we have a half-time seasonal staff, and that half-time seasonal staff comes in for beach sticker sales. So from the period of traditionally February to March, whenever the sticker sales start, to we'll just call it February through July. We have somebody who comes in about 20 to 30 hours a week just to do the processing for beach stickers. And this office handles an awful lot of things. So every department that collects revenue for their various activities, whether it's the recreation department, the cemetery department, the library, the school department, everybody who has activities that generate revenue, they have to bring all of that over to the treasurer's office. And the treasurer's office has to process that. In addition to that, they handle all of our billing and collections. Real estate, personal property, water sewer, motor excise, boat excise. What I want to point out for you guys is that our volumes are increasing. And they are also going to increase even more significantly during FY 26. Because right now, the town currently issues water and sewer bills semi-annually. And we are migrating to a quarterly billing system for water and sewer. And we're doing that for a couple of reasons. Right now, when we issue bills twice a year, those bills can be fairly large for some folks, and it would be much easier and better business practice if we smoothed out those payments into quarterly payments so that people could budget for them more effectively and manage their own cash flow. But it also helps our cash flow if we receive those on a quarterly basis. But more importantly, what's been happening is that we have, when folks have issues with their water bill, if they have a leak in their line or in a with a toilet or something like that, the way we catch those is when we look at the consumption. So we go out and read the meters and we track the consumption for each and every customer. And when we go to bill it, we get a series of consumption exception reports. And that's where we find accounts or properties that have problems with their water meters. Well, right now, we're only finding those situations every 6 months. So that could wreak havoc on somebody's bill when they've had a leak that's been happening for 6 months. If we were to do reads more frequently and issue bills more frequently, then we would be capturing those issues more frequently and being able to react and respond much quicker. And it would make life better for the homeowner as well as for our staff, so that we don't have to process corrections and adjustments and such. So we will be transitioning from a semi-annual billing system to quarterly, which will increase the workload of the treasurer's office dramatically. In addition to all of these other things that we've talked about, the treasurer's office also handles all municipal lien certificates. So anytime somebody tries to sell their property, they have to request a municipal lien certificate. And if you can imagine, over the last couple of years with the real estate market, the volume of those lien certificates has been pretty high. They also manage all of our banking relationships with our investment partners to make sure that we have proper cash management and internal controls. And then we haven't talked about it, but we also manage debt. So between myself and the treasurer's office, we handle our entire debt portfolio, working with our financial advisor, as well as our bond rating agencies. So there's a lot of work that happens through the treasurer collector's office. And then what do I do? So in addition to overseeing all 3 of those divisions, I am responsible for helping the town manager to put together and work with you folks to put together the annual budget, capital programming, forecasting, a wide variety of different management analyses, preparing financial reports and making sure that our ACFR gets filed along with our relationship through our auditors. Protecting the AAA bond rating. So every year we have an annual bond rating review call with our bond rating agency. And so there's a lot of preparation that goes into getting ready for that bond rating call. Not the least of which is preparing the annual official statement for our investors, which is a pretty thick book of data reflecting our community that goes out to the investment, goes out to all the investors who are looking to buy tax exempt bonds and invest in communities like ours. I also handle with Karen and my other counterparts up here, the annual audit, the tax recap process. So after we finish town meeting and we go to set our tax rate, there's a very detailed process that we go through with the state to set the tax rate. I'm involved in all collective bargaining with the HR department, working with the town manager on preparations for town meeting, statutory reporting, interfacing with the Community Preservation Committee to manage and develop their budgets. I, along with Betsy, sit on the Insurance Advisory Committee. I'm also a member of the MMA Fiscal Policy Committee, which allows me to have access to a number of other communities. And we not only make recommendations for legislative changes to go before our state legislature, but it also gives me access to network with other communities for best practices. So I participate in that. I am an advisor to the Finance Committee, Fiscal Advisory Committee, Select Board, and Audit Committee. And also work on a wide variety of special projects. And so why do I say all of that? Because right now, our finance division, in terms of our department heads, is myself, Steve, Karen, Corey, and what we are going to talk about tonight is to propose to add one more FTE, a budget analyst, to our finance department. And that budget analyst would essentially handle things like this. So this community performs twice a year fee analysis or public fee setting hearings. And there's a lot of work that goes into taking a look at our existing fees, trying to cost out our services and make sure that we are charging appropriate fees. And so we need to have somebody who can dedicate themselves to addressing those issues. And I think you've sort of seen over the years the work that needs to go into reviewing those fee structures. More importantly, also assisting our departments with the budgeting process. So our department heads are fantastic, but there are a lot of department heads who are in positions for which their core skills and expertise are for the positions that they hold and not necessarily for budgeting, right? So we have folks who are managing our Parks and Rec department, or they're managing our water systems, our sewer systems, and budgeting is not at the forefront. So having the ability to provide assistance to them to prepare their budgets, get them loaded into ClearGov, get all of those schedules that you guys are looking for, and help to put together a comprehensive budget book would be a duty of this new position. A couple of other things is we talk about technology here, and we love to be able to use technology to make us more efficient. Right now, we have some technology that is in place that is coming to its end of life. Specifically our financial software, and we do need to have a replacement found for our financial software. There's a lot of research that goes into trying to identify appropriate replacements, and we just don't have the bandwidth. We've been talking about this now for about 3 or 4 years. I know that Carrie had brought it before you guys a couple of years ago. It's still an issue and we need to address it, but with the lack of bandwidth, we're just unable to do that. Timekeeping software, there's definitely a need to introduce timekeeping software in this organization. But we need to find a product that is going to integrate with our payroll system as well as our financial system. So there's a lot of work that needs to go into researching that. And then beach sticker sales, like we just talked about a moment ago, looking for sort of best of breed options that we would be able to employ in our organization to be the most cost effective and provide the best customer service. So there's a lot of things that are simply not getting done today that really should be getting done. And it's a direct result of bandwidth issues right now. Any questions on that? No?
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Oh, yeah,
I do. So what percentage of that new position is gonna be taking on new tasks versus offloading workload from existing positions?
that's a good question, and that will probably evolve over time. first and foremost, it will be offloading some existing tasks.
Right.
And then that will be part of the training process, because we've got, tasks that are currently in various stages of progress that we need to complete, and that person would be assisting in addressing those first. And then we would start to tackle some of these other things like policies and procedures and training, interim training that we need to do, that we haven't started yet. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, so with that being said, what I'm gonna do is just go right down the line, and I'm gonna ask each of these department heads to present their individual department requests. And you guys should have schedules in front of you that have been handed out by these folks. So we'll start off with Karen.
Karen was hoping you would start the other end.
Well,
Yeah.
he did draw the line.
If you wanna start with Steve, go right ahead.
Why don't we start with the audit, because that's quick and easy. So the audit budget, has been $52,000 for the past few years. We found the need to maybe up it $3,000 to $55,000 for FY 26 for a couple of reasons. It usually does get increased every few years, looking at the history of this fund. And also, we are currently preparing an RFP to obtain proposals for audit firms. And our audit firm has been Housen Sullivan, as you know, for a bazillion years. And they were acquired by Markham this year, and just very recently acquired by CBIZ. So from what I have learned from Mary and stuff, there's about 3 auditing firms within the state that handles municipal accounting auditing. So we'll probably ultimately end up with the same firm, but we do want to put that out there. And by doing so, it will get a price, a competitive price for our audit. But it is quite reasonable to think if the price will go up this upcoming year. So,
If I may just jump in, so the audit committee, so the town has had the same, although their names have changed, we've essentially had the same audit firm for about 15 years, perhaps even longer.
They were there when I was a selectman, so
Okay, so even longer.
I was in Sullivan, yeah.
And they've been great. However, it is time that we do go out and test the market and see what other options might be responsive and more competitive. They would obviously have to meet our qualifications to know that we would be obtaining the services that we need to obtain. But as Karen indicated, because these firms are sort of cannibalizing each other and being acquired, there are limited options available here in the state of Massachusetts, or that service, I shouldn't say just in Massachusetts, that service the Commonwealth. It's highly unlikely that we would be looking at a firm that's located physically far away, because we do want to make sure that the field staff is on site for part of their field work to do observation. That's a key component of audit services. But we are gonna test the waters and issue an RFP for audit services. It could be that the price goes down, but it's highly unlikely. So because of that, we're being proactive and increasing the budget slightly.
Makes sense.
all right, so for accounting salaries, I'm gonna go down option 2. The salary increase is due to what Mary just explained, the budget analyst position being requested. It falls in the accounting budget. Okay, so that's the difference there. Overtime. Last year, there was a $550 line for overtime, and somehow in FY 25, we have 0. I don't know what happened, I wasn't here, but
That's what happened, Karen.
but anyways, we're asking for a very nominal amount of 300, and this is for year end. The 2 hourly employees within the office, they work extra hours, and they're always willing, they're great employees. But all we offer them is comp time, which then in return takes them out of the office. So, I mean, $300 is maybe 7, 8, 10 hours tops overtime between the 2 of them. It's really not much to ask for. And, okay, going down, computer equipment. There's a request for $500 and that's to replace a monitor, keyboards, mouse, or a printer,
Would that not go through IT?
It does not.
Okay.
that's okay.
Just as a general rule of thumb, the IT has delegated or deferred these smaller items to the departments for them to handle on their own. They handle sort of organizational wide computer purchases, copiers, things of a larger scale. But these smaller things that are somewhat disposable, keyboards, mice, calculators, et cetera, those would be delegated to the individual departments.
Okay, but we do get some economies of scale on ordering them or no?
So we shop around for the best price, for sure, and I know in the last two times we've purchased printers, we've consulted with IT to make sure that what we have selected is a supportable option and that they feel is the best price option. So we are running it by them, but we're handling the research and the procurement of those.
Okay,
Ted has a question.
Just a question on the overtime. What would be a realistic number to put in?
Realistic, I would like 1,000.
Why don't you put it in?
Option two.
Hmm?
Option two. or
Option
one?
2.
No, well,
It's the same, right?
it'd be option 2. But it just seems that, we constantly are robbing Peter to pay Paul, so now we give kid time off, but the time off takes them out of the shop, so they don't get any work done.
That's exactly what's happening, and then the 2 that work for me, they don't even take the time, I have to tell them to, because I feel bad. But there's such good employees that aren't gonna take it, so I started tracking it myself, so I could tell them, that you have this amount of hours.
Betsy, Betsy, does Sean have a question?
oh, Sean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that red thing a question?
No,
No, that's mute,
microphone.
that means he's muted.
Oh, I didn't know whether when his name came up, he was trying to.
Sean, did you want to ask? a
No, I'm
question?
sorry. What happened was I stopped sharing my screen, so that's why it popped up.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay. He's obviously not listening anyway.
Oh,
I'm always
Oh.
listening, Betsy.
Right, go ahead.
Okay, so training education program, that is going up for numerous reasons. Nothing's changed about 3 employees going to the UMass conference, which is imperative for us to attend for the training and schooling, hearing the new laws, getting BLS updates, so forth, and for those of us who aren't certified to work towards getting certified as a governmental accountant. So the increase in cost there is just because the registration has gone up, the logic, different items like that. The June conference, historically, it's been 2 people who go, it's still 2 people, it's just an increase in registration fee. Mary might have has added a couple things that she's involved in, that might not have been included in our previous budgets, but for Devon's, the MMA show in Boston, the DLS seminar, which is all very important for her to attend. Boot camp is, particularly for me, it's a class, a very intense class. It's boot camp to get ready, it's like, it's just to prepare to take the exam, it's a real intense class to take the exam, and it's expensive, but it's,
How many days is it?
A lot.
quite a lot.
So I took it several years ago. I think I went to either 8 to 10 different classes.
Good.
Full day and lots of work outside of the classes, but it prepares you. The exam that Karen's talking about is the Certified Governmental Accountant exam, the CGA designation that is offered through the Massachusetts Municipal Accountants and Auditors Association.
And of course, you can see the MMA seminars, the MCTA conference is for the payroll admin. It's important for him to go to that, that's the Mass Collectors Treasurers Accountants Conference, because they cover payroll items at that conference, whereas particularly doesn't cover that too much. And the MCPPO is for a 1-day training, or you want to?
Yeah, so, this is, my intent here is that there is a consultant who works with a number of different communities. She's a procurement expert and hallelujah. And I saw, I participated in a couple of her webinars, excuse me, with other communities. And she will come out and work with you to, deliver training programs. And so the idea here is that I would like to hire this person to come in and give, at least 2 training sessions to all of our department heads on just general procurement. This is not gonna get everybody certified in procurement, but we have a lot of new department heads and we have a lot of folks who are new to municipal procurement. And because that is the bane of our existence, we can't buy anything without worrying about proper procurement. The need for us to do training and give people the tools and the education to do it properly is important. So what I'd like to do is hire this consultant to come in and give a couple of training sessions to all of our department heads.
Okay. Dues and memberships, it's pretty much all the same as it has been, except the cost has gone up, except for the MCTA, which again is the Mass Collectors Treasurers Association, which is Mary and Justin. Meetings and travel expenses coincides with the training education program, is the cost of the travel, lodging and meals, which we're assuming will increase a little bit, and we have accommodated for that in the budget as well. Questions?
Opposed?
All right, we'll move on to assessing.
What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go over this sheet here. There is attached to that is the, down in the bottom right, says assessor's budget 2026 department requested. The other one that's attached here is just the 2.5% one that has that name down. The first item on the list here is the near map. This was a new product that we put into 2025 budget. So I get a little bit more explanatory on this one, just since it's a new thing, and to let you folks know, it was a good buy.
I want you to know I wanted to vote against this last year, and I think I did. But I'm not-
Did you change your mind now?
Well, I had, yes.
Oh, good. Good to know.
So, NEMAS is a service that was approved as a new item for 2025. Well, the past 3 months, the assessors when I say 3 months, this was back a month ago. So we're talking July, August, September, basically. Was able to capture the full 2025 cost of the NEMAP, the push bin, and the static images, which was $10,200 in new growth. The average parcel growth is $6,600 in value on 185 parcels. And I gotta tell you, just to like break off from that, it's the staff that's doing this. I would say more Sue Libby, who's in the office. This woman is a dog with a bone. You get her on this project and she is rifling through properties. Oh, I found this, I found this. What's this here? She does such an amazing job with it.
You just outed her with all our neighbors, you know that, right?
Well, it's a good thing of what's going on. I was against this program because I didn't believe it would do it because where we actually have physical in-house people, where a lot of towns hire out companies that do this inspecting for the permits and whatnot. And I felt that we had a really good handle on it. Well, maybe not so much. And there are some folks who don't actually tell us some of the stuff they're building on their property. So these are some of the things that we're coming across here. To pick up as we get to that 185 parcels, it is a very meticulous process of viewing the parcel, checking the vision system, and potential review of the folder that we have in the file cabinets. Nonetheless, it has, to my surprise, reaped the benefits many other towns had told Scott and myself. The other benefit is to the other departments, I think, in the building, especially Jim and Conservation, Nancy Rufo. They have really enjoyed this. I think the intriguing thing, we actually came across where they did 2 flyovers. One was April 10th and one was April 14th. Both Nancy and Jim had an issue at a particular property On April 10th, this particular object was not in the picture. On April 14th, it shows up and, hi, this is your friendly building inspector and conservation agent, we need to talk. So it was perfect, how it just worked out for them this past spring. I can't say it hasn't come with their challenges. The issue is, finding another company at the cost we're getting it for. It would quadruple the cost. NAMAP is $7,500 a year, will soon be 82 something as they go up, next year. The next closest person, I think, or company, is close to $50,000 a year.
Are you looking to leave?
No. I kind of get, just an uneasy feeling about how the company's run with the individuals that both Scott
You
and I
mentioned customer service could be improved.
yeah, it's a little bit something else. So, you kind of deal with what it is. The product itself works and does its thing, but it's sometimes getting them to, do things, and, some requests we held off paying their bill for quite some time, until they kind of worked through some of our initial kind of growing pains, but we got past that. When you do look at that line on this sheet here, it would appear that that line is going down 19%. But that's only because we're not purchasing push pin and we're not purchasing static images. The push pin product basically takes the 2024 images on Nearmap and goes back to 2014. And then it gives you a spreadsheet and says, that property that Betsy owns now has this, this, and this. And that's where the manual process of looking at things and geez, what do we have? What needs to be added? Do we have to actually do a visit or can we just measure that deck or whatever it may be? That's something you may do every 5-10 years. It's an inexpensive cost. I think it was maybe $1,100, but it's reaped more than enough, money to pay for that. But those two items are off. So all we're doing is increasing the Nearmap budget from the 7,500 to the 8,250. They said it was gonna be right under 10% was gonna be their increase. I just rounded it up to an even 10 on that. The bookbinding, the next one down there, not huge, 1.59%. It's a mandatory thing that we do. We believe we've found, I think the only place that really does this anymore. I don't know that we have a competitor that we could go to actually bind a book, but the commitment book does need to be bound, so it's available at any time in the future.
Which book is it?
It's actually the commitment book when we send out the actual bills.
I see.
So you could go down in the basement now and pull up one from 1920. And see all,
That requirement of the law.
yes.
Did you own your house, friend, in 1920 then?
My house wasn't there in that.
There you go, so it won't be in the book.
I do not have a shingle that says built in.
The training and education, there is a 15% increase there. In anticipation of some of the things that Karen may have mentioned. As to what is gonna go on with training, what might become available to us during that calendar year, but it's really kind of 15 months out. So based on the way things are going, we're trying to just kind of cover ourselves in that respect. Printing maps is another one that's kind of a wild card because we're some of this new construction that's been going on has been pretty robust with some of these new neighborhoods that have come along. So when that happens, the as-built that shows up there, we'll send that to CAI. So that's an additional cost to them just updating our maps for the revisions that happen at the Registry of Deeds. The actual putting the as-built on there of what was actually put on that site isn't it? I can't remember the exact cost. I think it might be $30 a parcel. But that really ramped up over the past few years, so that may come down. We may not utilize that whole 5%, but it's something that we're trying to anticipate. The next thing is postage. Basically, we exceeded our budget in 24 by over 8%. and there weren't any additional, mailings, in 24, even though it was a reval year, most of that mailing actually happened in 23, budget. So we're just kind of trying to, again, cover ourselves in 15 months from now. We're gonna assume that, the USPS is gonna raise their fees. Office supplies, we were under budget by 9%. We did increase it slightly, so that line is going up 4%. I think I skipped. Did I skip?
Office and computer supplies.
No, I think I skipped advertising for some reason.
Oh, yeah,
That's showing a 75% increase.
it's de minimis.
Yeah,
That's $75.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not talking, I don't know why I don't have that on it.
Well, it's
That's okay.
required. You have to advertise certain things anyway, so it's just.
Yeah, that's generally, for, this, disclosure is what we do. That's the legal notice that goes in the back of, the clipper once a year. So the next one is subscriptions and publications. The subscription budget increased 13% in 2026. In 2024, the line went up almost 24%. And what's ironic about this is the MLS bill that, since I'm an appraiser, I can get an advanced version from the multiple listing service. That bill actually went down, and scary enough, I did actually call them and said, "Are you for real on this?" And they were like, "Yeah, well, yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it." It was $126 a quarter, it went down to 105. The thing that keeps happening is CoreLogic, which is the Marshall and Swift book, so that I have current cost figures. It's nice to have in the office, but you really rely on a Duxbury price, which luckily we've been able to have sales where we can draw those numbers out over the past few years because of the new construction. But they're generally going up. I did purchase a new service this year called Realty Rate that supplies me with cap rate information so that I have something in-house. And then also the Duxbury Clipper is one of my subscription services. So I'm gonna assume that we're not gonna be, or we are gonna be going up on them as well. Recertification, it's called recertification, but if you look on the subline there, it's the personal property valuation. That is the one thing that we do farm out in the office. I'm not really good at valuing a desk or a computer or a typewriter or anything like that. So luckily we have those guys, and it does get a little bit more detailed than that because they also do value the large, huge utility companies and deal with them. So we would definitely need to have them. I think their increase that he's already sent me, 426, is just over 4%. And that's shown there. The meetings and travel expense, we haven't used much of that over the past few years because of our annual conference used to be down the Cape. The actual red jackets were sold a few years back, and nothing happened to the hotel, but the price basically doubled. So he said, sayonara to you guys, and they've actually been going to the 1620 in Plymouth. So I very well can't, spend money to stay only 2 miles from my house, so.
That was a very good decision.
Yeah, it just wouldn't look good.
Bad,
No,
bad decision, yeah. That was-
so,
Good decision.
it's been great, but, there is talk of moving that around to a different location. A lot of people, I particularly don't enjoy because you may go down to Plymouth once a month to do something, because this is where we all live. But, other people that come there think it's great just because of the location. You can park your car one time, go to the 1620, and then walk to everything all week long while that conference is going on. So whether it gets changed, I'm really not sure of that. And I did go up $200 on that account, just trying to cover myself to what could be, yes.
Well, it's a statewide organization, right?
That's
So
the
you-
Massachusetts
It's
Association.
other part of the state that don't want to necessarily drive all the way here.
Well,
Moving it
it's-
around would be helpful to save some people from traveling.
Yeah,
Not everybody
I mean,
is.
the folks down the Cape, when it was down the Cape, there were folks that would just, commute, cause it was in Yarmouth. So people down there really wouldn't stay at, the Red Jacket. And the Red Jacket, might have been a great location because it was on the beach, but it really wasn't convenient to anything. Because you have to leave to go do anything. Plymouth does offer some great abilities for the members. Dues and membership, that took a fair jump on there. I mean, dues, yeah, the big one there on that was the MAO dues. Each member used to be $75, but now 93, or will be next summer. When that comes around, that entire line I have estimated to at $1,228. So I've got $1,230 now. And that's just based on, with that MAO increase, I am gonna try and reduce one fee when I go to the Plymouth County meeting this year, so we'll see how well that goes. The other big increase there that appears to be a big increase is the appraiser's licenses. Both Scott and I are certified residential appraisers. And it seems like that's going up a lot, but it's only in every 2-year fee. So we didn't have it in 25, we'll have it in 26, we'll have it again in 28. So it kind of comes and goes on there. I do have a little bit of a 5-year outlook that's on there as well at the bottom that I'm gonna spare you the time of reading through that. If I look at the other sheet that's there, if I go with the 2.5%, there's really only a $2,500 or so difference. What I'm requesting is $40,130. The other one is $37,600. Is not really that big of a difference there. I think if it was unfortunate that all I got was the 2.5%, there's some educational things that would probably fall by the wayside for both Scott and I. And we may end up paying a little out of pocket because we do have the state license that I don't want to lose.
And I think that's been a common theme with departments coming before you guys is, we've asked them if we had to make reductions from the existing budget, what would be, where would the places be that you would look? And unfortunately, training and education is the easiest thing to scale back on because it's the least invasive, but there are consequences to that. And that, folks who are our professionals may risk losing their certifications with not keeping up with their continuing credits, but from an organizational perspective, if we don't get the training, then we lose the ability to easily learn about new requirements that we're subject to. And keeping in compliance with all of the things that we need to. So,
To get your appraisal license, you've got to take classes.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say that actually, both Scott and I are state certified appraisers. But we also have designations through MAO. Now, luckily, the classes we take for our state licenses are transferable to MAO. So it's 28 hours over a 2-year timeframe.
Right.
But something's gonna suffer there if we have to go with the 2.5%, that more than likely we're gonna have to pay that, because neither one of us actually want to lose that state certification. It's one thing to lose the designation through the state assessors organization. If you lose that state appraiser's license, I gotta start from square one.
Yeah.
And I am not doing that.
Not enough time left.
I know.
What do you want?
All right, any questions on the assessor's budget? Oh, all right, then we will move on to treasury collection.
Thanks, Steve.
So I'm gonna start on the treasurer collectors page, option 2. Mary had talked about, we've come into some, conflicts with, our sticker sales, City Hall Systems, which is our sticker, fulfillment, vendors, increased the cost to fulfill handwritten stickers from $3 a sticker to $6 a sticker.
They really don't like you either.
And the kicker was that they increased the price after we had already set the FY 25 budget. So they effectively doubled the price of the cost of doing the fulfillment. So if I remember correctly, I think I had to come to you guys for a reserve fund transfer to deal with that. So it's been problematic.
We weren't, informed until November of last year.
Nice.
Yes. So on top of that, handwritten stickers are no longer gonna be a fulfillment option through City Hall systems. So that results in the treasurer collector's office having to print stickers. Where you can imagine people coming to the counter, we're already backed up at busier times, if you're thinking February, March, even April. So that could add the time of each sticker to approximately 3 to 5 minutes, because we're sitting there entering the information at the point of sale. Which is why we are requesting that additional, part-time employee. So, we'd be going from 1 to 2, at 25 hours a week, just to staff, the counter and possibly move sales to another place within town hall. So that people who are coming in, residents who are coming in to pay their tax bills, real estate, motor vehicle, that's a busy time for us, can actually access our counter and do their business with us.
How many stickers do you sell for?
Overall, about a little over 13,000.
So would all 13,000 stickers have to then be pushed through town hall if they won't write the license plate on it?
No, so we will still have the online option, but like Mary said previously, a large portion do still come into the office. So, of those 13,000, 5,000 were, fulfilled online, leaving about 8,000 that still come to our counter.
So the 5,000 online, will they have the license? Cause that was the big glitch, is they wanna have the license number on it. So that they can't get swapped.
Yes, so they'll still have the license plate printed. The only difference is instead of handwriting the license plate number on it, the system will be able to batch print the stickers, so it will print out the sticker number on it versus us writing it on.
So the big change, I don't mean to
Of course.
jump in, but so if you look at your sticker right now, it's got an RFID tag on it, the radio frequency ID tag. We're doing away with that. And so what was happening with City Hall Systems, who's our vendor, the stock for those stickers with the RFID tag, was they required that the vendor and us handwrite the license plate, because those could not feed through a printer. You'd need a specialized printer scaled for that. So it required manual intervention. Our vendor, rightfully so, doesn't want to deal with all of that manual intervention, because they've got to hire the staff to do it as well. And it's very labor intensive. So what they want to do is they want people to apply online, and then they batch print. So at the end of a given day, they create a print file, and then they will print out the stickers that will automatically print. So we're changing the stock itself, and it will automatically print the license number on the new sticker. The RFID will go away. And so those stickers, we will still have the online option through City Hall Systems, but we will also now be using that same stock and printing capabilities at Town Hall. But so what Corey's describing is right now, when somebody comes to the counter, if they're purchasing a beach sticker over the counter on that Friday morning and they're trying to get out the door, we take their money, we take their application, we write the license plate on the sticker and we hand it to them, but we take their paperwork and we put it in the back office. And so the next time that seasonal worker is in the office on Tuesday afternoon, that's when they sit down and they enter that into our database. In order for us to go to this new system and get the sticker to print out at the point of sale, we have to do the data entry right then and there. So it's gonna slow down the process at the counter. But it's going to still give us the ability to offer the online sales, and have a consistent sticker without requiring us to handwrite on it. But what we would really like to do is move that type of business, the sticker sale itself, away from the counter at Corey's office, because they've got to process motor excise, ode excise, all of these things every quarter. And the lines just become extraordinary. So I'm not gonna say what the plans are yet, because we've got a couple of options that we're mulling over, but in an ideal situation, it would be in a physically different location that people would go, and we would just be doing sticker sales and trying to get them through the counter as quick as possible.
Would the data that is attached to these individual cars carry through from year to year? So it would maybe this year be ridiculous because it's all kind of being inputted, but then next year I have the same car, I go down, it should be, in theory, be there.
It in theory should be there, but the current, software that we have in effect does not. have that capability.
But the software that would go with these new stickers, would they have it?
It's the same software, we're still going to
It's
be
just a different
in
stuff.
this, correct. In this particular option right now, we're gonna continue with the same vendor and the same software. There are some other options for beach stickers. Other communities like Nauset and Sandwich and a couple of others do some other things. And we are starting to explore some other options, but again, it's a bandwidth issue of trying to do that research and analysis to find a replacement option that we're limited in doing right now while we're trying to get our existing day-to-day work done. So the vendor has notified us that we have to change because they are no longer going to handwrite stickers. So we had to pivot and come up with a solution that would work for us in February.
So we're basically using them to do 5,000 and then we're doing 8,000 in-house.
Correct.
Is it worth us to keep 5,000 there?
So we've talked about that and the time, yes, the short answer is yes. We would like to continue to have that online option. And so what happens is, in that case, we get a file from the vendor, at the end of business one day, the next day, we get a file of the 47 people who ordered their stickers online. We would then go through and print those and get those out the door. We definitely want to have that option because adding another 5,000 people to the line in town
5,000 people
hall
out of the office, right?
would be extraordinary.
So, but putting the online request through a terminal at town hall is not possible at this point.
So what we found is that even if you have a terminal and even if you have signage and instructions, invariably, people just say, how do I do this? Can you do this for me? It's very difficult to transition that behavior to self-service right now.
Nope.
One of the things that we've talked about, and the town of Plymouth has this for various types of business, is kiosks outside their town hall, so that you can go up and do some self-service business at those kiosks. And we talked about the option of whether that would be a good solution, and at first blush, it sounds like it. You know what? Somebody can come up on a Saturday afternoon, swipe their credit card, get their beach sticker, go on their merry way. What that means is that we would have to load beach sticker stock into that kiosk for that to happen, if we could find the right technology. But I will be honest with you, I am reluctant to leave stock in a kiosk that somebody could take away. And then they'd have access to all that stock. We've seen crazy things happen in this world.
I have trust issues as well.
Yeah.
Mary, did I hear you say that the future sticker considerations will no longer have the RFID?
That is correct.
Okay, and is that going to impact the interventions of all the tomfoolery of the sticker swappings, or what is the plan in place, knowing that there was some protection for sticker swapping at the beach?
So it's always a concern. The RFID barcode that was on those stickers was put there with the intention of using an automated system to track people coming and going on and off the crossovers. And I think I may have described this to you folks before, but there's a person here in town who developed this technology and built proprietary equipment that once a year, they go out to the crossovers at the beginning of beach season and they insert this equipment underneath the sand at the crossover and then install the cameras up on the poles so that it takes a picture of the license plates of the cars coming and going off the crossovers. And the idea would be that we could try to trap and prove whether people are out there without stickers or not. And I've seen some examples of folks who are out on the beach without stickers. The problem is that technology didn't exist on every one of the crossovers, so it's not foolproof. And so what we have decided to do, and because it's proprietary, it's not commercially available, it doesn't make sense for us to invest in this technology and not have a company behind it to support it if we were to have issues. So we are abandoning the use of the RFID tag because it was never fully implemented to begin with.
Okay, thank you.
There's always a concern, and I am trying to be as optimistic as I can, but as Betsy said, I do have trust issues.
Me too.
All right. Keep on going.
But actually, my question was, could we have somebody at town hall receive the online orders
That is, an option.
and get rid of City Hall for this?
Well,
Well,
we
but-
still need City Hall systems as the database. So
Do you need them for what, huh?
they're our database, so they house all the information for the stickers.
And the credit card processor.
And the credit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, our payment
Okey-doke.
processor.
So somebody could order it Sunday night at midnight. And, you know, they would have entered their credit card information. The City Hall systems is processing that payment and we get that as a deposit. So we're not dealing with all of that processing.
Okay. Thank you.
Were there any other questions on that line? So going down, financial services, we have 3 administrative fees. Those include, US Bank admin fee, and our 2 clean water trust admin fees. Next line item, you're gonna see a huge increase because I'm reallocating, some of the training and education from, travel. And then there is also like, Karen and Steve, explained, there were just increases in, registration. Costs as well as, experiences for the staff as well as the assistant, treasurers. So going down the list, annual school is for certification, so that would include myself and, the 2 assistants to get certified as, certified treasurer, certified assistant treasurer, and certified assistant collector. Annual conference, is down the Cape, we learn, legislative updates, things of that nature. Spring conference and fall conference, we've sent 2 people, that's also legislative updates and other, key, topics going around, the treasurer collector community. So that's where that comes from. The next line item is other professional, technical services, so that includes both our, payroll vendor, so that's a large bulk of that, that's our, bi-weekly payroll, that's just what we.
Yeah.
And then also City Hall systems, which we just explained, is our sticker fulfillment. The reason for the jump you see there is because it's been under budgeted. And also because of the increase last minute in the cost of the fulfillment, excuse me.
So we've been through about a cajillion payroll systems. How's Harper's working out? No, okay, I'm looking at Karen's face. So are we looking at other vendors?
The budget analyst will be looking at other vendors for us.
Good answer.
We
So
do
Harper's
the
is as
schools
bad as,
As well as the town,
Yes.
the whole,
Harper's is as bad as any of them.
It's limited.
Yes, it has good things about it, but when there's other things that I would really like to see in the payroll system that it would be able to handle. So I think we can do that way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think so.
All right, and then moving down the list, printing, so my printing includes, real estate bills, personal property bills, boat bills. The beach sticker stock we talked about, the transfer station sticker, stock we talked about, mooring sticker stock. The breach brochures that we are required, to provide. So that's a major aspect of that. Postage has been going up, there are, increase amounts, new rates would go in effect July of 2025 and January of 2026, so just trying to buffer that a little. No change in legal notices, the $2,000, we hadn't increased our office and supply, our computer supply budget, and that also would include the 2 printers we would need for the house sticker sales that we talked about. Subscription and publications, we also have the Clipper subscription and Amazon Prime. And then meetings and travel expenses,
You're going to the right jacket, huh?
We go to UMass Amherst for annual school, and then it's down in Falmouth for the spring conference. And that's all detailed in the breakdown. Dues and membership, there are some structure changes to the MCTA, which is the Mass Collector Treasurers Association's dues. So the treasurer collector increased $20. However, the two assistants decreased. And they also are now offering a staff membership. They're going to be including the staff in more educational opportunities. And then the public employee bond is required by state for both myself and the two assistants, the assistant treasurer and the assistant collector. Those are detailed there.
Any questions for any of us?
Well, other than the analyst, I was expecting that there would be requests or some, you know, seasonal or something, and you're
There
not,
is, if you look at the treasurer's budget.
yeah,
Second
Sorry,
line.
did I not-
Right,
right.
right, that's the only one.
So we're currently at, the budget right now for FY 25 is 7,200. And Corey is requesting 18,000 for the additional seasonal staff.
And that's just for the beach stickers,
Yes.
but it would still go through your department even if it was moved somewhere else.
Yes, there is.
Oh, it was so close.
And then I also do have a small tax title budget. It's pretty straightforward. The only increase I was requesting is legal services. There have been some major legislation changes to tax title. And I'm also looking at our tax title portfolio now that I've been here for a bit. So I would like to have a little bit of wiggle room just to work with Capella and Capella, our tax title attorney. That's where that.
What's our collection percentage? It's always been really good,
Yeah, we're at like 98, 99%.
so still, yeah,
Our delinquency portfolio is pretty small. And I don't know if you guys are aware of the major change that has happened that is affecting municipalities. It's called the Hennepin case.
no,
So, it started, but maybe 2 years ago, there was a taxpayer, don't quote me, was it New Jersey or Delaware or something like that?
Mr. Hennepin.
Ms. Hennepin.
Oh,
She was delinquent in paying her taxes, so the county, the community that she lived in foreclosed on her property and took possession of the property, which is what we have, as part of our remedies for delinquencies. Now, there's a long drawn out process before you get there, and there's lots of intervention opportunities along the way. But when a taxpayer has been delinquent for a certain period of time and we've met all of these tests, we have the ability to get a judgment to foreclose on the property and take ownership of the property. And then as a community, what we would do is then try to auction that property off as quickly as possible and put it back onto the tax rolls. So this process has existed for a very, very long time. Well, this taxpayer challenged the validity of the tax taking process and basically said that I owed the community, let's just use fake numbers, I owed the community $20,000 in back taxes, but my property was actually worth $250,000. You took possession of my property and have now got access to the equity of my property in excess of what I owed you in back taxes. Therefore, I want that equity back. That has never happened before. So this person sued the county, who foreclosed on her property, and she won. And it was appealed, and it's currently at the SJC, to determine the validity of that. But it looks like it's, at this point right now, it looks like it's going to be upheld. So what that means is that it has now affected the ability for every single treasurer collector who is managing delinquent portfolios on what they can do with properties. And in addition to having to return the equity, which means we now have to track it separately and satisfy the obligations to the community for the back taxes and then preserve the equity for some owner at some point to stake a claim to receive that. But it also affects the interest rate that we currently charge. So right now, if somebody is delinquent on their real estate taxes, we charge 14% interest. When you go into tax title, it automatically goes up to 16%, and it's been 16% forever. And it's intended to be a disincentive so that people don't become delinquent. Well, now this court case, this Hennepin case, has now changed the interest rate, and it drops it all the way down to 8%. So if you are delinquent on your taxes, and you now are in the tax taking process, that interest rate now becomes cheaper than if you are delinquent on your current real estate bill. So it poses implications for us. And then there is still a lot of unanswered questions about the community's responsibility to take possession of that property and prepare it for sale. And then actually go through the sales process. So we have to pay for all of that on our own, and we recover those costs, if you will, at the time that the transaction takes place at some point in the future. But if you imagine, we are not allowed to pay for anything without a town meeting appropriation. So we need to have sufficient funding available in the budget in the event that we have to face these kinds of things. Right now, under the existing tax taking law, or I should say the prior to November 1st, we didn't have to go through all of these hoops. If we took possession of a property, we would engage an auctioneer, we would auction off the property, we would receive the proceeds for the full auction price, and that would go, those excess proceeds would go into free cash. And the entire landscape of tax taking has changed. So, and it's still sort of a fluid process. So Corey mentioned the training seminars and these legislative updates. A lot of what the Treasure Collectors Organization is focusing on right now is all of these changes dealing with tax taking. Because we need to follow proper protocols in order to perfect our lien and protect the town's interest in order to make sure that we're able to recover any delinquent taxes due to us.
Do we have any liability for stuff that we've already foreclosed on?
No. Well, there is a look back period, but we don't have, we are not subject to it because any parcels that we had taken possession of are outside of the look back period.
We're lucky, we don't do it very often.
Correct. We're very fortunate here that we don't do it very often. So in response to this, one of the things that Corey's office has been doing is actively reaching out and sending letters and phone calls to folks who may be heading into that sort of delinquency status in order to get them into the office to pay so that we don't head down that road. We don't want to have people, first of all, we don't want to own property. That is not our intent at all. And we don't want people to have issues with their own home ownership and mortgages and what have you. We want people to stay current, stay in their homes, pay their tax bills, and everybody's happy. So her office has been taking some more aggressive measures in terms of reaching out to folks who appear to have started to fall behind.
Okay.
Well, there's a whole law also pending regarding banks seizing property and keeping the profit they make after they've sold the house up rather than giving it back to the homeowner.
Right,
So
same thing.
it's a problem that's been there for a very long time. And there's an industry about secondary markets buying tax title properties.
Yep.
Investors, they buy it from the town or the municipality just wants what they're owed. And they don't care about the equity and they don't care about the property owner whose equity it really belongs to. Although once they foreclose, it's in theory, what's the municipality's equity. And they would be buying, then they turn around and manage the properties and fix them up and they make a lot of money.
Yeah, there's a company here in Massachusetts called Talage, and they are very active in
Yeah.
doing that. And this whole Hennepin case dramatically affects their business
Oh, yeah.
model.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Their
All right.
former business model.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. I used to go to the MMA trade show, and Bill Cowan, who's the partner at Talage, would walk down the aisle and he would say, "Hey, Mary," and he had a list of the portfolios. "I see that your tax taking portfolio has gone up by 200,000. You're now at, 1.4 million. He stays on top of this thing because that is his business, and now it's.
Time to retire.
Yep.
Do you have a budget 133, that we're gonna go over tonight or not?
Nope, there is no more 133. It's been rolled into 135.
Okay.
Hey, before I forget, Sean, did you want to remind everybody about, the schools or Ted about the, presentation to the school committee?
Sure. But
Ooh, try that again.
Try it again, buddy.
congressional budget tomorrow night at the school meeting. I believe the meeting is set to start at 6, but they go to executive session to kick things off. So chances are I really start talking about the content of the budget 30-45 minutes.
Sean, you're cutting in and out. We're having a real hard time hearing you.
Teddy, do you know what he's, maybe you can,
I-
I didn't bring that.
oh,
Oh, so I can fill you in. And we still have one more item I'd like to go over with you guys, which is to talk revenues.
oh, all right, perfect, okay.
Um,
I'm sorry, I just didn't want to forget, because Sean had asked me before if you could do that.
Yeah, Sean, feel free to jump back in if you want and interrupt me. However, I had conversations this week with the superintendent and school business manager. And they are prepared to present their budget to the school committee, their option 1 and option 2 tomorrow evening at the school committee meeting. So if you are available to either attend or Zoom in, I would highly encourage you to do. Bless you. They are going to be presenting option 1 and option 2, which are going to be both very different budgets. Some option 1 has some pretty dramatic impacts in terms of trying to stay within the confines of that level budget and what that means for the school department. So the school committee is going to be presented with 2 very different budgets tomorrow night in order to evaluate. And they are actually going to be provided with 2 different options for option 1. So option 1, which is the limited budget, they're going to actually be presented with an A and a B to evaluate. And then they have the department requested budget. So I will let them share their information first, and then at our next meeting, we can talk about it.
So
And talk
it's
about-
at 6 o'clock, where will it be?
So I'm not sure, but let me jump on, we can jump on the website right now. Where does the school committee traditionally meet?
And their office over the high school,
Over at the high school?
well.
No, the
not-
school committee was room 104 at the, Alden, in the old.
They're at Alden 104.
There you go.
And they, if you go like, the entrance by train field into the pack,
Right, take a left.
it's that, the Alden building that juts out
Yeah.
to the right of that.
I always come in the back.
The kindergarten wing of many years ago.
Okay. So with that being said, what I'd also like to do, if I can hand these out to you guys.
Sorry about that, man.
No worries.
I didn't know you had something to say.
Nope, so, and I don't recall off the top of my head what date the school committee is coming before you guys, but they obviously need to present to the school committee first. Before we have the superintendent and,
Sean, do you know, or Teddy, do you know?
When they're coming.
Sean,
when they're coming here,
I can look it up, I've got the list right here.
when's school committee coming to see finance?
I can look at it too.
I believe it's
I think it's the 14th.
It's okay.
presenting Ted and I on the 18th, which is prior.
I've got it on the 21st
November,
on my sheet,
November 21st?
yes. It may have changed, it was November 20th.
We'll follow up right now.
Okay.
Yes, so they are at the finance committee on the 21st and fiscal advisory on the 13th. Okay,
13th of December.
November.
November.
Yes, they have, for their capital items, they'll go to fiscal advisory on the 13th, and for their budget, they will be before you on the 21st of November. So that's obviously gonna be a dramatic impact. So what I want to talk about is, I just handed out 2 sheets to each of you. And the first one has a yellow blob at the top, so I'm gonna draw your attention to the yellow blob. These are our revenue lines. So way back at the beginning of our budgetary process, we started off by talking about revenues. We shared with you the findings and research from the Sustainable Budget Task Force. And so I just wanted to remind you of where we stand. So if we look at the FY 26 column, essentially our revenue growth is driven by row B and row C. So if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see that. Proposition 2.5, as well as new growth. So for FY 26, their proposition 2.5 allows us to grow the levy limit by 1.697 million. And then the new growth is anticipated at 577,000. Right, Steve? So this is when the assessor shakes their head and says, I hope we make that target, because I have to come up with an estimate based on historicals. And then all of the work that Steve and his office do with their inspections and the near map product and what have you, all of the new growth that happens in town.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah,
We just got the October permit report that Sue runs out of
OpenGov.
OpenGov. And it was $7 million for the month of October, which is I think the highest October I've had in 8 years. I don't know what's going on. I will say like some of the Hawkins Place homes are coming on.
Mhm.
And these are permits for like 1.2 million. So there's a couple of those. in there, but-
So $7 million in,
Saint, not Hawkins, Hawthorne Hill. Hawthorne
Oh,
Hill,
okay, yeah,
opposite,
yeah.
St. George.
What about the ones off of Lincoln Street? They're the,
That, a lot of those, there's a little bit of that showed up this year, but, it's the slowest development.
Jesus, Mary and St. Joseph.
Unbelievable. I just don't get what they're waiting for. I think they're waiting for the whole economy to tank or something. I just don't get it. But I was really surprised. I'm not trying
when
to.
Steve says those numbers and he says $7 million, I immediately say $70,000 in our tax levy.
Yeah, it was, I was just really surprised because it's really been on a downward trajectory.
Yeah.
And so wherever those numbers, I was, you know, and I started looking at it detail, what is going on here, but there were a couple of big homes.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so based on what Steve just said, you can see that new growth line, you know, we are projecting, and we talked about it, to, that it is on a downward trajectory. Right now, we got certified for this year at 641,000. But next year, we're anticipating that there's gonna be a drop off as things start to cool off a little bit.
I don't know, Steve seems hopeful.
Well, on another note though, you know what may actually kick in that we're not even looking at on a report is, no kidding, the Nearman.
Yeah.
Because
which will
most
help.
of what we picked up in new growth in that, you know, Jack generated with this or that, the small items.
Yeah.
But Scott's now getting out on like, hi, how you doing? What's that thing you put on the side of your house?
Mm.
You know, got maybe mismeasured on the card.
Mhm.
So there are a lot larger things that definitely need a visit. Yeah, so.
I'm the only one that gets really excited about this stuff.
Yeah, the rest of us are homeowners. Thank you.
Yeah.
You can't hide anymore, Frank.
I'm gonna let my trees get bigger and bigger.
I've already paid the price. So the yellow blob at the top, however, what it is doing is it's taking our Prop 2.5 levy increase as well as our new growth, and then the change in state aid and local receipts. So rows E and F, those are essentially our 4 revenue streams. And what that is telling us is that as we enter into building an FY 26 budget, our levy capacity can increase 2.181 million. In order to accommodate all of the requests across all town departments. So that, I can tell you right now, is woefully insufficient to address the needs of this community. Because one of the earlier meetings that we had, I presented to you that there is a, right out of the gate, a $600,000 increase in our pension assessment. That comes out of that 2.1 million. That's just one of our fixed costs that have increased. And then all of the increases that we just talked about tonight, as well as all of the other departments that have been before you, will not fit in that $2.18 million increase. And the reason I am bringing this up tonight is for context, because the school department is having their meeting tomorrow. And we are going to hear the results of the budgets that they have prepared. And one, we have talked about, let me, before I move on too far. The second sheet that I gave you is local receipts, and that is for row F on the cover sheet. So local receipts are the items that we generate and drive or control here locally. Those are all of our fees for services and rates that we charge for whether it's for sewer, for cemetery, for libraries, building permits, beach permits, etc. Those are all of the local receipts, and we've spent a lot of time talking about these types of things. So that number ties into the first page on row F, just so that you can see where those are coming from. We had talked about, and I showed you guys last week, the omnibus budget that I have been capturing for all of the departments that show all of their line items and their option number 1 and option number 2 in one easy to read sheet with the columns next to each other. And so I have not given that out to you guys yet because I want to make sure that I have had an opportunity along with Rainey to meet with all of our department heads first and understand and make sure that the numbers that I'm putting in there are the correct numbers being requested by the department. I think I have 2 more departments that I have to meet with this week, and then I'll be able to share that information with you guys. And that's when your real work is going to begin, because you're going to be looking at the context of this 2.18 million allowable growth, figuring out what is an appropriate budget that you want to recommend, and therefore, what does that look like in terms of our revenue shortfall? Does that all make sense? So you're gonna get that from me next week.
I have a question. You had mentioned you're on a committee that meets with other municipalities
Yep.
and you help decide what goes in front of the legislature.
Yep.
So after reading this article in the Boston Globe today, it appears that this Proposition 2.5 that started in the 80s is now woefully, inappropriate for, we can't keep up. 2.5 can't keep up with what the needs are anymore. And all of a sudden, every community seems to be feeling it, not just us. Is that something that your committee is looking at? Would they be considered like, it shouldn't be 2.5%, it should be 4%, or it should be 5%, or it should be something?
So the committee that I sit on, so the MMA is the Mass Municipal Association. It's sort of our overarching municipal organization that is a resource for all departments, not just finance. And they have a variety of different committees. This one here that I'm part of is strictly for fiscal policy. And what we do is we make recommendations to various legislators. So we cannot propose legislation to Beacon Hill, but it has to be sponsored. If there's gonna be a bill that goes before them, you need to have sponsors of those bills. So we talk about ideas that are important to communities, and then MMA goes out and looks for sponsors for those bills. And it's a long process to get through that legislative cycle. But I can tell you that, yes, we have absolutely dedicated several of our conversations to talking about the constraints on municipalities and their ability to fund their operating budget. So and we talk about it at virtually every one of our meetings, because something new comes up that we need to now deal with. And it becomes an unfunded mandate that we now have to absorb. And every time there's an unfunded mandate, it causes pressure with our operating budget, right? We gotta find the resources to deal with this because we have to, so something's gotta suffer. So we have been addressing this. We have absolutely talked about Prop 5%, Prop 6%.
Is Prop 2.5, is that still a simple majority override? Or it started off as 2/3 majority,
So an override is majority,
just majority?
correct? Yep. Zoning bylaws and borrowing are 2/3, and almost everything else is a majority.
But that changed in like the early 90s.
That's just both town meeting and the election.
I'm sorry?
That's
Yes.
both a town
Yeah,
meeting.
but
Yes.
it was, you're right, it did, but it is still majority.
Yeah,
Yes.
The only thing that's more, that is like 9/10 or something is unpaid bills or.
Yeah, it's 4/5 at an annual and 9/10 at a special. For some weird
JR?
reason.
So, March, we're in the middle of March, we're sitting there on town hall, on the town meeting floor. And are we presenting two budgets at that one time? Are we saying? Do we have a budget? Will we have a budget? That will go for, let's say we're gonna go for another one. Will we have two budgets sitting there saying, this is what's gonna happen if we don't get the override? And this is what happens, and then we have to wait 2 weeks to find out which budget we're gonna use.
Yes. So we have to pass a balanced budget at town meeting. So. And then we have to present a balanced budget at town meeting and pass some sort of an appropriation. So we present a balanced budget and it is not a pretty one. But there is a motion at town meeting to authorize an override. That override, if it passes at town meeting, then gets applied to all of the various budget line items to which we
So
have,
we passed two budgets in theory.
in theory. And then we have to wait to see what the results of the election are. And if it does not pass at the ballot box, then the budget that becomes in effect on July 1 is the one that town meeting adopted, that was the
Gotcha.
balanced budget.
Yep, thank you.
But at town meeting, do we also, we vote the balanced budget so that we've got something? And then do we also vote the override? So there'll be two articles?
Yeah, we're probably gonna take it up in 2 steps, but remember, this is all dependent upon the select board. So the select
Yeah.
board has to vote first that they are going to allow an override to go onto the warrant.
So in spite of what we may talk about, they can decide on their own that
They're the only ones that can authorize it.
it's not
The
even gonna
the
come forward,
warrant
it's not
is-
even gonna come to the voters.
The
Yes,
warrant is
exactly.
theirs.
So on a similar type note, we're gonna vote in a couple of weeks on the MBTA issue. If, is any of this, well, first of all, are we sure that the seawall is appropriation money is not gonna be affected if that does not pass?
If what does not
If,
pass.
if the MBTA doesn't
MBTA.
pass, we have some state money, a grant coming to us, correct, for the
$3
seawall?
million.
Yep.
Okay, so that's secure, right? That's not, if the MBTA thing does not pass. Are we
Hmm.
sure we're gonna be able to keep that money coming?
We are not sure,
I would never say we were sure.
Okay,
but I will,
okay, so, but then, and the same thing, you have in this revenue sheet, you have state, aid.
Yep.
That's not,
that is not
These are-
affected in any way,
that's
that
not,
is
okay,
guaranteed. Yeah.
that's my question, thanks.
However, with respect to the seawall, I will tell you that we've had some internal conversations. The seawall is under construction. We have incurred costs for that construction. And the objective right now is to apply all of the construction costs that we have incurred prior to December 31st, which is the compliance date for MBTA, to apply all of those invoices to the grant to maximize the use of the grant prior to the deadline. Okay.
So it's not a reimbursement.
It is a
When the wall is built, they give you the three.
it's a reimbursement based on invoices submitted to the state.
Wow.
So it's yet another
That's a
deadline.
It's a break. Well, that's good.
Good, okay.
So let's assume if we incur $3 million worth of construction and we are able to get those invoices submitted to the state, then we would be in before the
Okay,
compliance date.
good.
As I'm visualizing this, it's becoming, to look more like a video game. When you go down a path and certain things happen, you have certain consequences. So my thinking here is that with these questions, which are, I think, very pertinent, what I'm seeing basically is sort of a scheme where you have a budget with potential going sideways. And I don't want to add more to your work, but I think for us to be prepared, especially after this upcoming school committee meeting, we need to really think through in sort of a big picture, and I mean really big picture, as to what the consequences are going to be, including the possibility that if the MBTA zoning proposal does not go forward at town meeting, what the potential consequences would be. Similar to something like this, but not in as much granular detail, because that's what's really worrying me.
Well, let me try to address and I respect and get what you're saying now. With respect to the seawall. So the project was originally authorized as a $20 million project.
Mhm.
And we got the bids and they came in at 14.3 or 14.4. We've added a contingency to say that 15 million would be the upper limit that we would need to finish the construction of that seawall. We were then awarded a $3 million grant. So the idea is that we would not borrow more than 12 million. Right, so we'd have a $3 million grant and we would only have to borrow 12 million. If in the event that we are not able to maximize the full grant and it does get taken away. And let's just assume we were able to use $1 million of that grant prior to December 1st for the cost of the seawall. We still have borrowing authorization to cover the full cost. And what that means is that the seawall will still be constructed. It will then be paid for through taxation instead of through the remaining $2 million of the grant, hypothetically.
So this cost us more, but we could still do it.
Correct.
Yeah,
Teddy?
Realistically, do you think we can bill them the 3 million in before December 31?
So that's up to the project manager and the construction company on how fast they are constructing it. I just had a conversation with somebody who's involved in that project earlier this week. So I don't have all of the details yet, but that is the hope.
I think that's gotta be done, because the state will screw us as soon as look at us.
Thank you for that iffy insight. Appreciate that.
Especially if
It's
we
official
ignore the
accounting.
law.
That's county.
Mass Society, CPAs over there, yeah. Yeah. You were a leader, state leader, nice to know.
Remind me again why we got Teddy appointed.
All good,
You needed some light comedy.
there you go.
Years of experience is what we needed.
All right, so if indeed you can go to the school committee, we have not posted it. So therefore, you would just be there as individual citizens
yeah.
and so on and so forth. I will not be able to go tomorrow night, because I had a previous commitment, but, I'm assuming that they're gonna videotape it, so. You know, I think we can all watch it as well,
I'll be
because they're pretty good about that.
And Sean will be there too.
Yeah, so that'll be great.
If I may,
Yes, please,
I just wanted to finish up on the finance department a little bit because,
because they fell asleep.
excuse me. As a member of the audit committee and, as someone whose background is in finance, I think this department is one of the more crucial departments in the whole town. In that if we do not reconcile our books, if we do not have adequate reporting, then the citizens of the town of Duxbury cannot take faith in any of the numbers we put in front of them. And so it behooves us to make sure this team has the resources to continue to do what I think has been an outstanding job for many years under many people. Well, someone's been here longer than the rest of the crew, but as I might say, the existing cast of characters are doing a wonderful job for us. And if they need more help, I think it really behooves us to give it to them. So that we can continue to maintain the kind of records that we've got. So the people that don't have to worry about the finance department. They can worry about how much you want to give the schools or public safety or road work. But you can sleep at night knowing that the money is well accounted for.
Yeah.
And that there aren't issues there that would become even more disastrous than if we didn't fund something else. So those are my 2 cents.
I agree 100%, and also the data that is being requested by the community. You know, it's not John Leonard in a ledger sheet, right? And we have a very sophisticated community, and the questions that they ask demand answers of substance. And if they do not they do not take it well, and we cannot provide that level of detail. And we can't make our decisions or recommendations unless we have that level of detail, and I will tell you this summer on that task force. I mean, the stuff that Mary and this crowd came out with so that we could actually analyze it was unbelievable. The level of detail, and I don't know how they did it, but I damn well know they can't continue to perform at that level without some help. I mean, it's impossible. And, you know,
I
Teddy,
think that
are
was
you
my
gonna say
point.
something fresh?
Yeah, no,
Keep it clean next time.
Yeah,
that's why I brought up the overtime before. I want to see a realistic number. If we need overtime at the year end, then let's put it in the budget. If it has to, and put it in the 2.5 and see what we really need to spend. And because as opposed to, well, we'll just blank this item out, because we got to get it back down to level funded. And so I'd rather see what we really need in every category. Rather than nickel and dime to try to force it into what we're requesting.
which is more and more every day. I mean.
Yeah.
The work that was required this summer for that task force was a full-time job, on top of the full-time job that Mary and her team already have. And they just did it.
I don't, we haven't done or have we done, it's the town manager's office.
We did do the town manager's office. The big items that still remain are some of our. We still have health insurance, and property, did we do property insurance? No, we still have health insurance and property insurance out of the two
We
and I.
still have those open.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're supposed to be around the 16th that we're supposed to be.
And I'll tell you that Medicare, Medicaid contributions and all of that stuff, it's not going down, boys and girls.
How
It's
about
we're getting whacked.
town manager, assistant town manager position?
So Rainey was here a couple of weeks ago presenting his budget, and that was included
It
in
was
his presentation,
upscale.
correct?
Is there anybody that?
You were here,
needs
Ted.
more people?
I'm sorry, say that?
I know, I was here, I might have been zoning out.
He thinks he's still here. Motion to adjourn, Madam
No,
Chair?
JR had a question.
No, not really. I just said, I'm just waiting to go to one of these budget meetings and not need more people. Everybody needs more people. I'm trying to figure out how. Whether we've just been scrimping, cutting. And then. Or do we really have growth in that we have more citizens and more? I know we need more reports and things like that, which is burdensome.
In spite of how people feel about the amount of taxes they pay, this town. has
More
been
analysis, but it's
Very,
also,
very tightly.
Oh, I agree
I will
with that.
tell you, for example, this ARPA program, which when it first came out, I was calling it pennies from heaven and it was the best thing ever. I can't wait for ARPA to be over because it has been at times a full-time job for me to administer. And those things happen, right? And so it has to be absorbed somewhere. And so in addition to everything else that happens on a day-to-day basis, now I'm administering the ARPA program. And it's a lot.
And when does that expire?
So it's still gonna go on for 2 more years, but the big deadline is this December. So I've got the December deadline with the seawall, I've got December deadline with ARPA, I've got the December deadline for ACFR, I've got December deadline for the budget, the whole 9 yards. So the ARPA funding has to be fully obligated and committed by December 31st. But then we have 2 years to complete the projects that we're using the money for. And have to have the funds fully expended by December 31st of 2026. But during the course of those 2 years, there's quarterly reporting requirements that I have to comply with.
good times.
And
No, it's not
is-
going away.
Is there a sum of money that you have to spend? You know what it is?
Yes, so the town received $4.5 million in ARPA funding. And so we are trying to utilize all of it across a variety of departments to address needs throughout the organization.
Don't ask her how much we've already spent.
No,
I'm begging you.
well, it just, and
I can tell you I programmed out 4.4 million. But we're trying to get through it all. There's still a lot of paperwork that needs to be submitted to the county. I have another week's worth of
It's all
work.
capital work, capital.
And that would be part
Yes,
of what the
one time.
analyst would be able to do. Because do we want Mary filling out forms? Or Karen filling out forms, or do we want them actually trying to determine the best strategies and the best things to do? So it's, I think that's one of the bigger differences. We're $100 million corporation that's still, you know, acting like we're half that amount with that. Anyway, stay tuned, film at 11,
There you go.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
I.
Aye.
Or, yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean.